Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Players Championship Data Dive Show. Per usual, on a Monday evening, we're going to take our first look at the forecast for Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, and TBC Sawgrass. Figure out if we think a wave advantage is developing. A little bit early in the week, but perhaps there is some clues that could lend us a direction in that regard. We're going to take a look at some deep statistical dive into TBC Sawgrass and the types of shots and types of players that generally perform well around the Players Championship. We'll go through the rabbit hole, see which players have been doing that the best, especially in 2026. And then at the end of the show, I'll show you the research that led to what I posted earlier on social media. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from both Fantasy National and the Rabbit Hole from BetSperts. The Rabbit Hole is in the process of acquiring or merging with Fantasy National, so I am slowly migrating my data files from Fantasy National to the Rabbit Hole. A little bit of a slow-going process. It takes quite a bit of time, but go check out the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. It has all of the power at your fingertips to make the correct wagers every week, and then optimize your lineups. Has a lineup optimizer, has tournament simulator. It has everything you need at your fingertips, like I mentioned. So go check out the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where I posted some research regarding the past 13 winners of the Players Championship going back to 2012. That's just as far back as Fantasy National goes. So posted some research and a lot of patterns for previous winners. There were 6, I believe, that I posted to social media, so we'll go cover that towards the end of the show. But if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players that I've wagered with my own money and the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. I would not recommend it if I did not believe in it. It's amazing. He also picked the winner down in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, again, I've enjoyed working with him for these past few years. Really believe in what he has to say and all of that. And by subscribing to his article, you're going to get his deluxe version, which has projected ownerships and his top plays, top values, everything you need to finalize and be ready for the PGA Tour week after week. So make sure you're subscribed to his article and following him over on social media, especially because that is where we put our detailed write-ups for the 2026 Picks Challenge. And then lastly, for this intro, we're live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. Have you made any wagers for the Players Championship? If you have, who? How do you think the tournament's going to play? What do you think of the forecast? How do you think that's going to alter things? And then moving forward tonight, what is it that you're wanting to see throughout the evening in this data dive show? Who are you wanting to perhaps take a stronger look at? Who are you staying away from, you think? So anything and everything in the Players Championship, put your thoughts and opinions in the chat. If you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2026 Players Championship. We're going to start, as we always do on a Monday night, with the extended forecast look over at Windfinder. We get a couple of things here out of my way. The forecast looks to be pretty mild leading up to the tournament. No precipitation for the week leading into the tournament. And I've heard reports that this area has been pretty dry. And we actually saw that last night in the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, that it's been pretty dry for this area of the country for quite a while now. So this is going to be extra firm, extra fast. There does appear to be some rain coming in overnight on Thursday, which looks like it'll soften up the course maybe a little bit. But Windfinder doesn't have any rain in the forecast for Saturday until Sunday. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. Again, this is where I get my information for wind, is Windfinder. Maybe you have a different set of or a different place that you get your info. Don't mind me. I am just bringing up another file here that I want to take a look at later on this evening. So yeah, as of right now, depending on when this system comes in Thursday, we could be looking at a Thursday AM, Friday PM wave advantage. At least that's what it looks like early on in the week. But we'll have to see. It's just too far in advance to make any definitive claims about that. Saturday looks pretty solid. Sunday looks like it won't be a whole lot of wind, but a lot of rain in the forecast. And then if this, high amount of wind comes into play Monday into Sunday, it could lead to an interesting final on Sunday with a lot of wind. But as of right now, we're going to be looking at some wind metrics, no doubt about it. But it does appear like Friday or Thursday PM, and particularly Friday AM, might have the worst of this draw. But we'll have to see. It'll sort itself out throughout the week. So make sure you're staying on top of whatever weather reports that you want to look at, or others that you trust in the golf industry about forecasts and things like that. So with that, we're going to exit out of Windfinder. And normally we go straight into the rabbit hole. However, last night I mentioned how Fantasy National had not loaded a particular page view. And it's this one here, the strokes gained total page view over the past 5 years at the tournament. We tried to look at this last night. It wasn't populated. But now it is over in Fantasy National. So I do want to give you your due diligence and show you the players specifically who have been the best at TPC Sawgrass the past 5 years. I tried to do or simulate this a little bit last night with my files, but I didn't have the strokes gained total. Your number one strokes gained total leader at TPC Sawgrass the past 5 years, no surprise, it is Scotty with 2 wins. Did finish top 20 last year. Missed the cut in 2021. T55 and then wins. Your most consistent performer has been Shane Lowry. 1 top 10, but only 1 finish outside the top 30. So Shane Lowry's been very consistent here. Second in strokes gained total. Corey Connors has been very good here with 2 top 10s, another top 15. Tom Hoagie, 2 third-place finishes, including last year, and another top 25. A little bit surprising, considering how he's not generally a pretty, he's not known for putting, but it shouldn't be surprising in the sense that he is one of the premier iron players if his irons are working at that time. So Hoagie makes some sense there. Siwoo has been great, obviously a former champion. 2 top 10s, did withdraw a few years ago, but generally pretty solid around here. Brian Harmon, 2 top 5s, quite Jekyll and Hyde. Boom or bust, if you will. A couple top 5s, and then everything else outside the top 40 in these past 5 years. Justin Thomas, a win, but then quickly getting fairly mediocre. And that shows the volatility of TPC Sawgrass. With all the water in play, all it takes is 1 hole, and you could be very well out of the tournament. Kind of the Augusta effect, if you will, with the ability to just blow up and eject out of the tournament. You see Daniel Berger has been very good around TPC Sawgrass. Of course, missed 23 and 24 with injury, but has finished inside the top 20 all 3 times. Some other notables here. Tommy Fleetwood, 4 for his last 4. 4 for 5 in the last 5. Hideki, somebody mentioned Hideki last night, having great tournament history or course history. True in the sense that he has 2 prior top 10s, but he's also missed the cut twice. So I would push back a little bit on that, on the great history. I would consider great history being like Berger, Lowry, etc. But Hideki, couple top 10s here. Aaron Rai has been really solid in the last 3. 2 top 20s, T35. Sepp, hit or miss. 3 top 20s, a miscut in there. Colin Morikawa's been pretty solid. Your defending champion, Rory, always a threat probably, but he's also, like Hideki, had a couple of miscuts. Seabez has been okay here. So there's a look at some of the players who have been pretty good around TPC Sawgrass, and the other end of the spectrum, players who have not been good around TPC Sawgrass. Cam Davis does have 1 top 10 finish, but horrendous results around it. Gary Woodland has not been good. Emiliano Grillo is 2 for 5, but really lacking in terms of decent finishes. Andrew Novak. Ricky, even though he has won this, has struggled the past 5 years here. 1 top 15, but missed the cut, and then very, very poor made cuts there. Patrick Rogers, Johnny Vegas, Nico Echeverria, never have been much success here. Harry Hall, 0 for 2. We come down a little bit further. Mav McNeely has a top 10, and then not a lot else. Nikolai Højgaard, 0 for 2. I know somebody mentioned him last night. I'm a little worried about Højgaard just because, just like I mentioned last week at the API, he never had very good success at the Arnold Palmer. Played better than I thought, but he was still, middling. So would be a little concerned about Nikolai. Kevin Yu, Sam Stevens, both 0 for 2. Tony Finau, 1 top 20 and pretty poor finishes elsewhere. A little surprising to see Andrew Putnam struggle around here, with off the tee being somewhat mitigated, and I'll get into that a little bit. But with off the tee being a little bit mitigated, you would think Andrew Putnam might rise in value, but he has really, really struggled at TPC Sawgrass. Adam Scott, not a whole lot of success in the past 5 years. That is Sahith Theegala. Seamus Power. Oh, that reminds me. I need to let you as the viewer know they did add 2 alternates to make sure that the threesomes were even. So there's 123 players in the field. They added Seamus Power and Patton Gazire are now officially in the field for the players. So Seamus Power, not a whole lot of success. Billy Horschel played a lot better than I thought he would last week at the API, but still not a whole lot of success to go on here. Michael Kim. Cameron Young is 3 for 4 in terms of making the cut, but nothing better than a T51. That's not inspiring at all. Coming down here, a lot of these players are just kind of 0 for 1. Sam Burns, not a whole lot of success around here either. So those are the players that have and have not been good in terms of a strokes gained total around TPC Sawgrass the past 5 years. I wanted to make sure I led the show off with that since this was not populated last night. Now we'll go over to the rabbit hole and bet spurts. And first thing I want to do, because of the forecast, gosh dang it, January 1st. There we go. Let's take a look at moderate and windy conditions. It's just off your screen there, but anytime the wind is over 10 miles an hour, your top performers in moderate and windy conditions going back to the beginning of last year: Scotty, Rory, Harry Hall, Tommy Fleetwood, Chris Goddard, Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry, Hideki, Ryan Gerard, and Corey Connors are your top 10 in terms of wind performance. If we narrow that into just 2026, I don't know if we're going to have enough rounds to make it statistically significant, considering you see the most is looking like 16. Yeah, Daniel Berger at 16. So it's not a whole lot of rounds to go on, but if you don't want to include last year's performance, your top win performers just in 2026, Ricky Castillo, Sepp Straka, Chris Goddard, Colin Morikawa, Rory, Minwoo Lee, Jacob Bridgman, Matt Fitzpatrick, Akshay Bhatia, and Kevin Roy. That have been your top performers in the wind in 2026. Quick review from last night. With the wind, and it's just the players, it's going to be difficult. Let's take a look at difficult and very difficult scoring. Again, this is a little bit of a review from last night, but a good start to our evening, get us in the, on a focused mindset of what we want to look at this evening. Your top performers when scoring conditions are difficult and very difficult: Scotty, Rory, Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood, Bobby Mack, Harris English, J.J. Spawn, Harry Hall, Russell Henley, and Keegan. And then the only other filter that I would want to look at is Pete Dye performance. Now, I went back quite a few years last night on Pete Dye. If we look at just 2025 and 2026, again, pretty small sample size there. Let's go back. I'll just go all the way back again to 2022, just the full 5-year range that I customarily go to. Your top performers in the field this week on Pete Dye designs: Scotty, Justin Thomas, Brian Harmon, Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Xander, Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley, Wyndham Clark, and Hideki are your top 10 on Pete Dye designs. So keep those things in mind as we move forward this evening. I'll take away the Pete Dye filter. Let's go and take a deep statistical look into TPC Sawgrass again. So remember last night I was lamenting or wondering where this info was. It wasn't populating last night. Here it is. So we'll cover this here very quickly, and then we're going to go to Microsoft Excel and take a look at some statistics from there as well. You see off the tee, pretty difficult to gain off the tee around here. Distance is much less. Players generally choose to club down or play prudent with these dog legs and S curves. Try to stay out of trouble. So it's pretty difficult to gain off the tee here. Good drives is a lot less. The fairways are narrower than the average PGA Tour course. There's a whole lot higher rough penalty. There's a whole lot higher missed fairway penalty. So I don't know what we're going to look at in terms of off the tee, but we'll take a look at something. Actually, I do have an idea of what I might want to look at in terms of off the tee. Because really, there isn't a whole lot of danger if you just miss the fairway, by a couple of yards or so. Yes, you're going to be in the rough, but that's not the worst, or even the pine straw. It's when players really hit wayward drives, the foul balls, that are going to get themselves in trouble, because that's when they're going to find the water. So I'm probably going to look at some distance edge of fairway type stuff, make sure the guys aren't just hitting it miles offline. If we take a look up here, mixed off the tee club type, very difficult. Approach is very difficult. Missed fairway penalty high, rough penalty high. So we could take a look at a couple of filters like that. We take a look at approach. To gain strokes on approach is really difficult around TPC Sawgrass, especially inside 150 yards. You see that there. But just overall, approach is very difficult. Greens hit slightly less. The fairway bunkers actually aren't all that difficult to play out of. You see that there. So you're going to have to be very good with your irons. We're not going to ignore iron play at all. Proximity is a little bit further away. Going for the green, a little bit more difficult. Around the green, again, difficult, but it's quite a bit easier short grass. So if players are scrambling or um, playing from any kind of fairway cut. It is actually a lot easier. I mentioned how last night I remembered, or I kind of disagreed with the around the green being labeled as difficult. I guess I was more so remembering players playing from short grass. Because you see, from the rough, it is very difficult around here. And that's why we're going to be probably taking a look at some around the green type stuff with the rough. Having said that, almost half of your around the green shots here at TPC Sawgrass come from short grass. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Sand, not terribly. I mean, it's difficult, but not overly much so. Putting's actually not as much of a difficulty as I remember it being. Only 10% less here than the average tour event. And in fact, putting inside of 15 feet is a little bit easier than the tour average. It's the long putts that get you in trouble. Approach putt proximity is a little bit less. Scoring, birdie or better is actually kind of on pace with the tour average, but the bogey avoidance is much less successful here. So we're definitely going to be looking at some bogey avoidance tonight. Par 3 scoring higher. Par 4 scoring is much higher. Par 5 scoring is a little bit higher. And then the approach ranges. You've got a pretty well balanced set of approaches here. And this is what I was mentioning last night. How a lot of TPC Sawgrass tests every aspect of your game. You've got a few 50 to 150, like these wedges. You got a few of them, but not overly much so. You see the biggest relative difference between the PGA Tour averages actually in going for the green, 225 to 250. And that's why I was pretty adamant last night that we're going to want to look at some par 5 type stuff because of this here. 200 plus is basically right at tour average. 150 to 200 is less. So I don't know. Maybe we look at 100 to 150. Maybe because 30% of your approach shots come from there. I don't know. I can be talked into a few things to look at in terms of approach. So anyway, I wanted to look at that since I noticed that that was populated this evening. Now I'm going to go to what I am comfortable with and what I wanted to show you all. This is my comparison course file. Taking a look at the players going back the past 5 years and seeing where these strokes gained kind of lie. So you see off the tee really took a dip last year, and around the green was a big factor. And this is just an enormous outlier, and this is an enormous low outlier. You remove those, and all of a sudden the players becomes quite clearly a ball striking course. 26% more important approach, 33% more important off the tee. I don't know about as much of an emphasis in off the tee. So I am going to remove this around the green because that is just an astronomically high outlier. 18.5% if you kind of include the low outlier there. So it's a ball striking course, plain and simple. Pete Dye rewards good ball striking. Putting actually not the biggest deal around TPC Sawgrass. You can see that there. This is compared to the average full field course. So, things like Arnold Palmer aren't in here because it's not a full field event. But a lot of ball striking, absolutely. And distance isn't a factor. 32% less important. Good drives gained is kind of where it's at. Hitting greens, making sure your ball's still in play. So that's what we're going to be looking at quite a bit. You see distance was actually a negative factor last year, or not necessarily a negative factor, but players that finished in the top 30 were less in distance than the average in the field. It just wasn't a factor at all. Greens, big deal. Good drives gained. We're going to be looking at good drives gained. It has slowly crept up year over year for the top 30 players. You see the fairways a little bit too, but I don't know if it's enough just to hit fairways. I want to see good drives. I want to see greens this week. So we'll be taking a look at that in terms of off the tee and then distance from edge of fairway type stuff. Scoring, the higher raw number is generally in the birdies gained. We have a pretty big outlier in bogey avoidance, but if we compare them to full field course averages, a little bit surprising that both are negative, but it's still the birdies gained higher. I don't know if I agree with that. You can't argue with how consistent the birdies gained have been, but I'm still thinking bogey avoidance is going to be what we're going to want to focus on this week. And if we take a look at double avoidance, yeah, double bogey avoidance is really, really high. We might take a look at that, considering all the water in play. And then we get into kind of the meat and potatoes here. Par 3s, 4s, and 5s, where a lot of the strokes gained come in these various holes. So if we look at the par 3s, there's the most to be gained on the island green. If you're able to avoid the water, you're gaining quite a bit on your fellow contestants or your other players in the field. This is a big number just because not every course has a 0 to 150 par 3. But it is the most to be gained. So any par 3s we look at, we're going to look at total par 3s, and they've been pretty consistent. Having said that, they're only 3.5% more important than the average full field course, whereas you look at places like, I would have said the Cognizant, but that's even a little bit less. But like these par 3s are really, really difficult. The Amex, the Stadium course, the par 3s play a pretty big factor. Hey, good evening, Turkey. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. This is our week. I will tell you, Turkey, I had a pretty darn good API. So I'm just trying to carry the momentum. When I played a whole lot of Daniel Berger and he nearly wins at sub 5% ownership, felt pretty good about that one. Played all the Scotty. I did play Rory, who withdrew, but played mostly Scotty, who was fine. It would have looked a lot better had he not double bogeyed the 72nd hole, but I can't complain about my performance at the API. So I'm looking to keep that momentum this week for the players. But thanks for jumping in chat, Turkey. Much appreciated. The par 4 numbers here around Sawgrass, very big. Very, very big numbers. It only says 6%. Being close or over 4.5 is pretty large. And you see how much they've grown in the past couple of years in terms of being able to play these par 4s and play them well. And a good mix. A good mix here. So we're going to take a look at all par 4 scoring as well. Obviously not 500 plus. But there isn't a whole lot to be gained 0 to 350 when they move to the drivable par 4. But pretty well consistent across 350 to 500 here. So we'll take a look at all of those ranges of par 4s. And then par 5s, they're very important. You got to take advantage of the par 5s around TPC Sawgrass. It's really in the 500 to 550 because that is the majority of the par 5s in length. Although, to be fair, 550 to 600 is also quite a bit here. But I think this is last year's causing a lot of that. If we look at proximity, these numbers won't mean a whole lot. I consider this a huge outlier. We'll remove that, like 200 plus. It says it should be something to look at. Going for these greens in par 5 or going for these greens in 2 on the par 5s. You see that number is pretty big because total prox isn't that big of a deal. But much like what we saw in the rabbit hole, a lot of these shorter wedges seem to be what the players that have finished in the top 30 year over year seem to be excelling at. So, okay. Interesting. All right. With that, we're going to go back over to the rabbit hole. Close out of that. And let's start going through the rabbit hole here and figuring out the types of players that are going to be who we want to focus on this week. We're going to start with off the tee. And again, I'm just not feeling the off the tee per se. Distance is not a factor. You could look at accuracy. I'm going to look at a couple of different things here. I'm going to look at good drive percentage and distance from edge of fairway. I'll keep this time frame. Let's take a look at good drives. Yeah, sure. Good drives when scoring is difficult. We'll start with that. That's a good starting point. Your top performers in good drives, meaning the players hit the fairway or they hit the green from fairway, bunker, rough, something not the fairway. Your top performers in good drives the past year and 3 months in the field for the players. Zach Bauschow, only one measured round, so be very mindful of that. Hao Tong Lee, again, only looks like one tournament. The Open, so be very mindful of that. Aaron Rai, who's had a lot of success here. Russell Henley, Marco Pinge, Colin Morikawa, Takumi Kanaya, Michael Thorbjornsen, Corey Connors, and Daniel Berger are your top 10 in terms of good drives when it's difficult scoring. Let's go good drives. We can look good drives when actually I kind of like the idea of looking at good drives on Pete Dye designs, because Pete Dye is notorious for playing with players in terms of messing with their eye line and eyesights and the way they need to play the hole. So, your top good drive performers on Pete Dye designs. Again, very small sample size here. Hao Tong Lee, Sudarshan, Yellow Miraju, Zach Bauschow, Aaron Rai again, Daniel Berger, Brian Harmon, who's had quite a bit of success around here, Victor Hovland, Russell Henley, Colin Morikawa, and Sung Jae are your top 10. Scotty Scheffler, just outside your top 10. Chris Kirk, Glover, Pavone, William Mao. I kind of like that now that I'm thinking about it. These good drives with Pete Dye design. And then the other way you could look at this, and I'm not sure I would put it in the mixed condition model, but taking a look at good drives when gaining off the tee is difficult and very difficult. Austin Smotherman, Hao Tong Lee, Colin Morikawa, Aaron Rai, Russell Henley, Christopher Raytan, Lucas Glover, Max McGreevy, Ryo Itsatsune, and Siwoo. So, different ways to look at these good drive percentages. The other thing I'm going to look at here, distance from edge of fairway. And we're going to look at this in a couple of different ways. We're going to take a look at distance from edge of fairway when the missed fairway penalty is high. Meaning players know that they have to be in the fairway or they're going to be in trouble. Your top performers in that regard when there's a high missed fairway penalty: Takumi Kanaya, Joel Damon, Keith Mitchell, Pearson Coody, Danny Walker, Michael Brennan, Russell Henley, Max McGreevy, Sepp Straka, and Aaron Rai. And then the only other way I'm going to look at that is just this year. Just flat out who's been somewhat accurate this year. And you see that was interesting. Like Scotty has been hitting some foul balls. Rory been hitting a lot of foul balls. Hideki. So it's interesting to see that. Good evening, Trip. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Hopefully you've made some wagers, or at least you're comfortable with some wagers if you've made any. We're going to be going through a lot of these various page views, and stick around to the end because you were pretty big on players trends last night. I'll show you my research, or what my research has led to. But it's good to see you in chat already. Bet Morikawa and Ludwig. Rest of my list is down to Hovland, Hideki, Xander, and Scam Young. Hey, good evening, Darnell. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. I saw your messages, as I was signing off. Glad to hear that you had a good week for the API. I had a very successful week, playing a whole lot of Daniel Berger, playing Scotty, all of that. So led to a really, really good week. We're going to try and keep the momentum this week. Darnell, thanks for jumping in chat. Likely going with 2 out of those 4. I told you my hesitation with Hideki. And Cam Young's actually not been very good around here. And if we look at this distance from edge of fairway, this is the average distance in feet and inches from the edge of the fairway when the player misses. This is going to be very important around TPC Sawgrass. Missing the fairway by a little bit isn't going to be horrible. You're just going to be in the rough, maybe some pine straw. It's when you really hit the foul balls because you're going to find water. Round 4 showdown, big win. Had Batia. That's awesome. It's great to hear. I didn't play Batia. I've been kind of low on him this year, and clearly that's just been the incorrect take. But again, I'm not going to complain about my performance, at least in DFS, playing a whole lot of Russell Henley, playing a whole lot of Daniel Berger at sub 5% ownership. That one I'm really, really proud of. Played some Fitzpatrick. I played a little Rory, but Rory's withdrawal didn't hurt nearly as bad as it did some others. My big takeaways were playing a whole lot of Berger, staying away from Tommy, who was really bad, and staying away from Jake Knapp. Tommy and Jake Knapp were 2 full fades that worked out in my favor. So, yeah, it was big. It was a big week for me. Scotty double bogeying the 72nd hole caused me to lose my top 20 parlay, so I'm still a little bit salty about that. But overall, it was still a very profitable week. Just not as profitable. But as I was mentioning, this distance from edge of fairway is going to be very important. You cannot hit big foul balls. Your top DFEF players, your DFEF players so far in 2026, Joel Damon, Lucas Glover, Russell Henley, Corey Connors, Ryan Gerard, Takumi Kanaya, Matt Fitzpatrick, Brian Harmon, Daniel Berger, and Siwoo. Collins also there. Sung Jae, it's only 1 tournament. Brian Campbell, Lee Hodges. Cameron Young's been a lot better in 2026. I will say that. He's been a lot better about avoiding the foul balls. But my concern with Cam Young for you, Trip, is his performance here leaves a lot to be desired. Miscut, T51, T54, T61. Not a whole lot to go on there. It's encouraging that his irons have generally been pretty good around Sawgrass. I don't know. Maybe with the fact that he's starting to rein in his distance from edge of fairway stuff, maybe that's a reason to look at it, because he's always been one of the worst at DFEFs. Like, if I expand this time frame and go like January 2025 and back, Cameron Young's probably not very high up here. Yeah, you can see 108th. So Cam Young is so crazy off the tee at times. Yeah, this is what. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Chris Goddard. Where is Cam Young? There he is. So yeah, I mean, he is 16th or 18th or whatever he was in 2016. You can see he drops to 61st from, if you include 2025. That was my worry, Trip. But again, numbers don't lie. He has been much, much better in 2026 so far. Maybe that's a reason. The players who have been hitting massive foul balls so far in 2026. Cam Davis, who's been horrendous around the players. Stefan Jaeger has been hitting a lot of foul balls. Davis Riley, Egg Van Rooyen, Matty Schmid, Rasmus. Rasmus played horrible down in Puerto Rico. Aldrich Potgeider has been hitting a lot of foul balls. Wyndham Clark, Harry Hall, Max Grazerman. Another reason why I'm kind of concerned with Nikolai. Nikolai can spray it off the tee. Thor Bjornsson, Eric Cole, Ludwig, although Ludwig's played better the past couple of tournaments. So I know you mentioned you've already wagered Ludwig. That would be one concern I would have with Ludwig, is the fact that he's been pretty poor on this distance from edge of fairway. Hideki, he's been better lately for some reason, but still worrisome. Probably talking about Cam Young, yeah. But he's been playing a lot better lately. So that's the way I'm looking at off the tee this week. I might have some distance from edge of fairway type stuff. But mostly it's going to be good drives. Going to have some iron play baked into the off the tee. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked that using that Pete Dye filter. We'll now go to approach. Definitely are not going to overlook this. Your top approach players early on in 2026: Siwoo, Colin Morikawa, Ryan Gerard, Austin Smotherman, Daniel Berger, Marty Doe or Ziching Doe, Justin Rose, Jacob Bridgman, Rory, and Victor Hovland. This might be where Cameron Young isn't going to be the best, although he's a lot higher already than what I thought. So Cameron Young's 47th. That's not terrible, considering he's normally bottom half of the field. So, okay. Irons are getting a little better. But yeah, there's your top iron players. Definitely give these guys a good boost. You're going to have to be very good with your irons around TBC Sawgrass. And then downgrade these players quite a bit, because they have not been hitting their irons very well. Matty Schmid, Brian Campbell, Vince Whaley, Eric Higo, S.H. Kim, Van Rooyen, Matthew Pavone, Bobby Mack. A little surprising. Bobby Mack's been really bad with the irons early on in 2026. Johnny Vegas, Justin Thomas only one tournament, Sung Jets one tournament, Marco Pinge, Pot Guider. Keegan has been really bad with his irons. So there you go. Give those good players a pretty significant downgrade. Again, I would not use the Pete Dye filter for strokes gained approach, but as I was mentioning with the good drives and off the tee and stuff. Sorry, I've got an itch in my nose. Pete Dye is notorious for playing with your eyesight and forcing you to play towards trouble and stuff. So it's just interesting to note your top strokes gained approach players at Pete Dye Designs. Two-time winner Scotty, Shane Lowry, who's been really good at TPC Sawgrass. I know he hadn't been good lately. I'm talking specifically at Sawgrass. He's been pretty good. So it makes sense to see them 1 and 2. Victor, JT, Russell Henley, Rory, defending champion. Tom Hoagie, again, plays these Pete Dye Designs extremely well. So Tom Hoagie, Smalley, Eric Van Rooyen, Keegan are your top 10 in terms of approach specifically on Pete Dye Designs. But yeah, we're just gonna be looking at approach. I'm gonna try to speed through this a little bit, considering there's plenty I want to hit. We're gonna look at overall proximity, and again, just solely based on this and what we saw a little bit in Microsoft Excel. I'm kind of thinking about the 100 to 150, because I think the 200 to like the 225 to 250 or the 200 plus can kind of be looked at with par fives, like going for the green type metrics. So let's take a look at both of those. We're going to look at 100 to 150. Your top performers early on in 2026 from 100 to 150 yards. Ryan Gerard, Siwoo, Victor Hovland, Carl Phillips, Justin Rose, Seabez, Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors, Austin Smotherman, and Patrick Cantlay. Boy, we have not heard anything about Patrick Cantlay all 2026. But he's been good with his 100 to 150, I guess. And then 200 to 250 makes more sense. If I look at this here, yeah, 225 to 250 makes some sense. 250 plus. Yeah, maybe we just look at 200 plus then. Siwoo, Ludwig, Hideki, Nikolai, Michael Brennan, Sudarshan, Sammy Valimaki, Smotherman, and Hao Tong Lee. All right, I'm sold on Hovland. Okay. I don't remember what his performance has been here. I just truly don't remember. So I'm going to have to look. Players. with his current form, like the irons are still good. That's why I've been high on him early this year. Like the irons are still good. He's just been pretty darn bad off the tee. And that's worrisome around here, especially if these are like big foul balls. How's he done at the Players? He does have top 10, a top 5, 2 top 10s. Missed the cut last year is very, very worrisome, Trip. And I'll show you why at the end of the show. Okay. I might play him a little bit in DFS, but I'm not excited about it. Let's do around the green. Definitely going to look at around the green stuff. Just your top around the green performers so far in 2026. Tommy, Hideki, Scotty, Harry Hall, Ben Griffin, Taylor Moore, Sahith Theegala, Minwoo Lee, Keegan, and Akshay. And if we take a look at, I think we looked at long rough last night. I don't know if that's going to be the right way to go about it, considering most of your approach shots, your around the green shots here are from the short grass. That said, where am I looking here? Around the green, scrambling rough. No, that's not what I want. Gain, no. Par 5, rough penalty, fairway off the tee, rough length. That's what I'm looking for. Jeez. Again, just bear with me. I'm still trying to get used to the rabbit hole. With the around the green stuff here, like it's a lot easier than most places with the short grass. It's really difficult around the green rough, but you don't have that many shots around the green rough. Losing in distance mostly off the tee. Yeah, that's been very worrisome for Victor. I mentioned this last week. Him along with Ludwig. Ludwig played pretty well. That Victor and Ludwig had lost, like club head speed and ball speed early on in 2026. But yet Ludwig still played well last week. So that is worrisome for Victor. I will say that, Trip. I'm still thinking it's rough just because it's very hard around the green rough here, even though you get majority of your approach shot or around the green shots from short grass. Your top around the green players in long rough: Scotty, Sungjae, Russell Henley, Andrew Putnam, Hideki, Siwoo Kim, Harry Hall, Pat Gazire. Yes, he is in the field. Even though his salary says 0, he is in the field. They added him and Seamus Power to make the threesomes even at 123 players. Davis Riley and Alex Noren. Okay, lastly, 2 more things. Sorry, no, a few more things. Gosh dang, I gotta get a move on, or this is gonna be going all night. Going to take a look at putting, but it's not as big of a deal here as I thought it was going to be. We're going to look at, I need to remove the long rough filter. We're going to look at Harbortown, Innisbrook, Memorial Park, the Pete Dye Stadium course. There's something else I'm forgetting in there. Sorry. Pete Dye Stadium course. Quail. Quail Hollow. TPC San Antonio. Sawgrass and Scottsdale. To apply that, your top putters on Poa Trivialis Overseed: Denny, Sam Burns, Jacob Bridgman, Seabez, Adam Scott, Ben Griffin, Brian Harmon, Chad Ramey, Nico Echeverria, and J-Day are your top 10 putters on Poa Trivialis. And then I normally don't look at this, but I think it'll make sense once we take a quick look at the research. Your top putters in just 2026, who's just been putting well lately: Jacob Bridgman, Jake Knapp, Matthew Pavone, Akshay, Seamus Power, Davis Riley, Bobby Mack, Kevin Roy, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, and Vince Whaley are your top 11. 2 tied at 10th. 2 more things that I want to look at. We looked at par 5s last night. So let's take a look at par 4s. And again, these par 4s are pretty darn difficult. So this will definitely be in the mixed condition model come Wednesday night. Your top par 4 performers when par 4 scoring is difficult. Scotty, Rory, Marco Pinge, quite less rounds. So be aware of that. Hao Tong Lee, Christopher Raytan, Corey Connors, Aaron Rai, Tommy, Daniel Berger, Danny Walker, Harris English, Ricky Castillo, and Jake Knapp are your top par 4 performers when par 4 scoring is difficult. Last thing we're going to take a look at, we're going to look at birdies and bogeys, especially when it's difficult, like the Players is. When you have winning scores into the teens. Your top birdie or better players when scoring is difficult or very difficult: Hao Tong Lee, Keith Mitchell, Rory, Scotty, Ludwig, Nikolai Højgaard, Harry Hall, Pearson Coody, Victor Hovland, Christopher Raytan. And then bogey avoidance: Hao Tong Lee, Scotty, Vince Whaley, Michael Brennan, Ricky Castillo, Christopher Raytan. Again, very few rounds here for Lee, Brennan, and Raytan. Connors, Mac Meisner, Stephen Fisk, Russell Henley. Double bogey avoiders: Kevin Roy, Bobby Mack, Joel Damon, Scotty, Tommy, Russell Henley, Harris English, Takumi Kanaya, Pearson Coody, Ryo Itsatsune, and Max McGreevy. All right. I'm going to put this on strokes gained and reset it just in case we have some more questions at the end of the show. But we're going to finish with some Microsoft Excel data here. We're going to look at performance specifically at the Players the past 5 years. You can see Bud Cauley has only played the Players one time, but he finished 6th because he gained 14 strokes with the putter that year. That is just, obviously it's not sustainable. Be mindful of some regression there. But he clearly liked the greens. Danny Walker played very well last year. Expect some regression. Daniel Berger, Shane Lowry's been very good here. Strokes gained total leader, Scotty, 4 for 5. All right, let's sort on a few of these metrics that we know are going to play very, very importantly. We're going to start with the approach. Your top iron players, specifically at TBC Sawgrass the past 5 years. Rico Hoey, one time. He's the inverse of Bud Cauley. Couldn't make a putt at all, but hit his irons immaculately, doing Rico Hoey things. Shane Lowry, Tom Hoagie, Siwoo. Danny Walker was very good with the irons last year. Eric Van Rooyen, leaving a lot to be desired in terms of total finish, but has hit his irons at least very, very well, just not making any putts. Rory has been hitting his irons very well around TBC Sawgrass. JT, Smotherman, there's Ludwig. Gerard, it's only one time. There's Victor, doing it all in the ball striking, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sepp Straka, Scotty, Corey Connors. So there's your top iron performers, specifically at TBC Sawgrass. We'll go putting. We'll do a couple others because I want to make sure I hit the research. Your top putters past 5 years. Bud Cauley, it's one time. Jake Knapp has averaged 5.5 per tournament. That's unsustainable, but interesting to note. Patton Kazire, 3 for 4, averaging 4.5. Minwoo Lee has put the daylights out here. Chad Ramey has put the daylights out here, but the difference is Minwoo's been pretty darn good off the tee and around the green. Chad Ramey has been acceptable and hitting his irons atrociously. Davis Thompson has putt well. Akshay has putt pretty darn well here in his 2 tries. Ryan Fox, Kirk Kitayama, JT Poston, Daniel Berger. Don't sleep on Berger again. 3 for 3. Average finish inside the top 15 here. The only 2 years he missed, he was injured. I don't see why Berger won't play well again this week. Ricky's putt well here. Past 5 years, Brian Harmon, McCarthy to be expected. McCarthy's just been consistent here. So if you're playing like 50-50s and double ups, McCarthy's probably a pretty solid option to get you through 6 of 6. Tom Hoge, not a very good putter. I always say this. Anytime a very poor putter is traditionally good at a specific surface or at a specific place, you got to pay attention to it. Tom Hoge is not a good putter, yet he's averaging gaining 2 per tournament here at the Players. Don't be surprised if I'm very high on Tom Hoge come Wednesday night. I do want to see who hits greens. Top greens gained players. Aaron Rye. If Tom Kim gets into the tournament, he's up there. Matt McCarty's one time. Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry, Scotty. I know Minnie Schmidt's in there, but I'm trying to highlight big time names. Harris English, Corey Connors, Ludwig again, Henley, Hovland, Alex Noren 2 for 4, Siwoo down here. Let's do bogey avoidance and par 4s. Your top bogey avoiders, and then I'll also go one column over here. Top bogey avoiders: Ludwig, J-Day, Scotty, Corey Connors, Aaron Rye, Daniel Berger, Straka, Hoagie, Hovland, Sungjae. Been very good around TPC Sawgrass. Take that for what it is, considering he's coming off the injury and did not play particularly well at the API. Glover, Hideki, Jake Knapp 2 for 2. Xander doing pretty well with bogey avoidance. Lastly, par 4s, because they're going to be very important, and then I'll end the show off with the research. Your top par 4 performers at TBC Sawgrass past 5 years: Aaron Rye, Minwoo, Scotty, Siwoo, Seabez has been very good on the par 4s. Smalley's been very good on the par 4s. Daniel Berger again. Rose, interesting. He's only 1 for 4 the past 5 years around the Players. Interesting. Keegan, J-Day, Tommy, Harris English, Lowry, Batia, Damon, and so on. Okay. Sort on average finish. There are several, and I mean several, patterns of previous winners at the Players. So I'm going to try and cover that as much as thoroughly as I can, as quickly as I can. We're going to start with the winner matrix. Performance at the Players leading up to their win. I'm going all the way back to 2012. That's as far back as Fantasy National went. But I want you to know something very, very quickly here. Look at the performance before a Players win at the Players. All but two of these, 11 of the 13 champions made the cut the previous year's Masters. Might not sound like much just to make the cut, but it is very important. Rory throwing that off a little bit with 2018, and then J-Day in 2016 missed the cut beforehand. But otherwise, like, these guys at least played well the year before. Let me highlight. See, Scotty doesn't qualify. There's that, there, and there. 12 of your 13. The only exception being Scotty, his first time he won. 12 of your past 13 winners at the Players had a top 25 at the Players within the past 3 years. Yeah, even though Rory missed the cut in 2018 and then wins, he had a lot of success prior to that. He top 20'd the year before winning last year. Scotty is the outlier in that regard. He did win the prior year. Cameron Smith top 20 and then won. Justin Thomas top 15, top 35 and then wins. Webb Simpson top 20 win. top 25 win. Top 20, J-Day doesn't play, misses the cut, and then wins. Ricky, second, missed cut, made the cut, wins. So 12 of your past 13 winners all had a top 25 within the past 3 years at playing the players. So anybody that you're wagering, make sure they have a top 25 recently at the players. Let's take a look at form. This is extraordinary how much consistency there is here. Let's take a look at their performance just in that calendar year since the century. Rory, 3 top 15, or 3 top 20s, including a win. Scotty, perennially in contention. Even Cam Smith wins the century. Justin Thomas, several top 15s. Rory, several top 10s. Webb, several top 10s. The one kind of outlier here is Siwoo. Only had 1 top 25. Even J-Day, a bunch of success. Ricky had a bunch of success. Martin Keimer, Tiger, Kuchar. All 13 of your past 13 winners of the players had at least 1 top 25 in that calendar year. Meaning from the century, or for this year, from the Sony to the API/Puerto Rico. Make sure anyone you wager has at least a top 25. All but Siwoo and Cam Smith had multiple top 25s. So preferably, the player you're wagering has multiple top 25s early on this year. And they top 25 their last event. 2022's champion is Cameron Smith. He's a little bit of an outlier there, only finishing 33rd at the Genesis. And then 2015 is Ricky. Ricky missed the cut at the Zurich when it was still an individual tournament. Those 2 are the only ones. Everyone else, so 11 of your 13 winners, top 25 their previous event. Make sure they're in great recent form. Look at their irons. Rory broke the trend last year, but every single champion, other than 2013 Tiger, we don't get stats for the Masters, proprietary. Every single player was dialed with their irons the tournament before the players. I mean, dialed. This isn't like a half a stroke. The lowest is 1.7, but you got 3.3, 3, 9.5, 5, 4, more than 3.5. Make sure your guys that you're wagering are dialed with the irons lately. There was one other thing, I think, and it's eluding me at the moment. But I'll take you over to what I put on social media. 12 of the 13 had a top 25 at the players. 11 of the 13 made the cut at the previous players. 11 of 13 top 25 their previous event. 12 of 13 gained on approach. All 13 had a top 25 in the calendar year. And all but 1 had multiple top 25s. With these 5 or 6 criteria, there are 12 players who fit all of these. And notice, Scotty Scheffler is not one of these. Scotty was horrendous with his irons at the API. He did not qualify that part of it. These are your 12 in alphabetical order. Berger, Batia, Harris English, Siwoo, Kurt Kitayama, Jake Knapp. Little bit misleading here, considering he withdrew from the API. His stuff is coming from the Genesis. Minwoo Lee, Colin Morikawa, Xander, Jordan Spieth, Sepp Straka, and Sahith are the 12 that fit all 5 or 6 of these criteria. Rory doesn't, because he was losing strokes on approach before withdrawing from the API. So there is the research that I posted over to social media. If you want to see that, research like that every week, make sure you give me a follow over at X. I'll bring us back to TPC Sawgrass Performance. That's going to be it for a Data Dive show this evening. Thanks to Turkey, Trip, and Darnell for jumping into chat. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process like we did at the Arnold Palmer. We're going to try and keep the momentum for the players. Thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made so far for the Players' Championship, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Players' Championship. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.